Robert Half research indicates 9 out of 10 hiring managers are having difficulty hiring. If you have open roles, chances are you're feeling this too. That's why you need Robert Half.
Our specialized recruiting professionals engage with our proprietary AI to connect businesses of all sizes with highly skilled talent in finance and accounting, technology, marketing and creative, legal, and administrative and customer support. At Robert Half, we know talent. Visit roberthalf.com today. Hello and welcome to Happier, a podcast where we talk about how to be, spoiler alert, happier. This week we'll talk about why we should show ourselves, and we have a hack that I cannot wait to use about putting an Altoids tin to good use. We all love an Altoids tin. Here's an unusual way to use it.
Yes.
I'm Gretchen Rubin, a writer who studies happiness, good habits, the 5 senses, human nature. I'm in my little home office here in New York City, and joining me today from LA is my sister Elizabeth Kraft, who I just saw in Kansas City. We had so much fun.
Yes, that's me, Elizabeth Kraft, a TV writer and producer living in LA. And Gretch, I think we got our 10,000 steps in every day in Kansas City. So that was a victory.
Yes, so many blooming flowers and trees. It was gorgeous in Kansas City.
Yes.
And before we jump in, we have a few updates and ideas from listeners.
Yeah, this comes from Olivia. She says, I just got finished listening to episode 474, where you talked about how rebels resist SMART goals. As a rebel myself, I wanted to share a couple of observations with you from my experience. I should start by saying being a hard worker and a good teammate are parts of my identity. Professionally, I don't mind SMART goals when they apply to a group where I'm not the only one being held accountable. I've noticed that I view those goals as guidelines and feel the flexibility to modify/shed them if they no longer serve our team, while others can get trapped by the need to follow those goals to the letter no matter what. It also really helps if I'm involved in drafting those goals. SMART goals that single me out would probably irk me. I am very driven by a mission statement. I think a well-written mission can be the professional equivalent of an identity for rebels.
Interesting.
To the listener who wrote in about her boyfriend, I would suggest that he go to his boss and emphasize his commitment to their company/division's vision or mission, and say that he's happy to make SMART goals, but would like the flexibility to modify them as appropriate along the way to better serve their mission. He may never need to modify them, but having the okay to do so may lessen some of his resistance. Alternatively, he can take charge of conducting/initiating check-ins with his boss around the goals to give him the sense of being in the driver's seat. By the way, I totally resist SMART goals in my personal life. I want to go with the flow. I write my 24 for 24 list in pencil and leave lots of blanks.
Well, this is great. It's great to hear rebels weigh in. It's good probably for rebels to realize that even if other people are talking about SMART goals all the time, they may not be a tool that works well for rebels. And I like that Olivia has suggested how to talk to the boss in a constructive way, because it's sort of like how do you actually act on this self-knowledge? Like, what do you therefore then do with it? That's not always easy to see.
I mean, it's amazing how rebels know what works for them.
And this update comes from Jenny, who writes, when I heard you mention a loose ends day in episode 473, it reminded me of the Navy's tradition of a rope yarn day. Sailors would get a half a day off to tend to personal tasks. I learned about rope yarn days while I was working at the Office of the Oceanographer of the Navy as a NOAA Sea Grant Fellow. Our admiral gave us a rope yarn day. Some of the staff ran along the C&O Canal towpath and swam back in the Potomac River to Georgetown, while others of us cheered them on. Not much got mended that day. So I got curious about this idea of a rope yarn day, and it turned out this came from the time when the Navy ships would use sails, and the sailors would use rope yarn to mend their clothes and their hammocks. because they didn't have many resources because they were out at sea. So they would use this rope yarn as mending material. And it was a break from the usual chores. So it was kind of a personal day, I guess you would say. And then it said that after sailing ships were no longer used by the Navy, rope yarn became free afternoons to do personal errands. So I'll post an interesting link if you want to read more about the history. Loose ends and rope yarn, it's very much tied. I love that.
I do too. That's so fun.
And one more thing, if you are thinking about giving one of my books for Mother's Day, I have found in the past that my books are often given as Mother's Day gifts, or if you would like to ask for it for yourself, you can get a personalized book plate. If you want to add a personal touch, these are free. I will sign and personalize them. I can do this for US and Canada only, unfortunately, because this is something that I will mail. Do it quickly because there is a little bit of a process here, so I can't always turn them around extremely fast. But if you want to request those, go to happiercast.com/bookplate. A lot of people just like to give a signed book. It's personalized. Elizabeth, you love to give a personalized gift, and this is one way to personalize a book.
You know I do, Gretch. I love it.
You love it. So this week, our Try This at Home suggestion is to show yourself. And I got this idea because there's a story that I just cannot forget that I read years ago in a book called The Actor's Life, A Survival Guide by Jenna Fisher. Now, of course, I am a huge fan of The Office, the TV show The Office, and Jenna Fisher is the actor who plays Pam. We interviewed Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey, her best friend, about their book, The BFFs, about being on The Office together because Angela Kinsey played Angela Martin. And Elizabeth, you and Sarah interviewed Jenna just about this book because you think it's such a good resource for people who are trying to make it in Hollywood.
Yes, I tell everybody to read this book, whether they're an actor, writer, director. She has such good advice, and it's also just a great page turner.
It is a great page turner, and a lot of the advice really does apply even outside the Hollywood context. It's kind of like Happier in Hollywood. It applies in Hollywood, but it kind of applies in life. And this is the interesting story that she told that really got me thinking about the importance of showing yourself. So she's telling the story of when she's just starting out, and she had what she describes as a very unflattering headshot of herself in overalls. But she did get an agent, and the first thing the agent said is, hey, you got to get a better headshot. And he suggested a popular photographer, and so she hired this photographer, and he took this great picture of her, which she includes in the book. You see the overall picture, and you see then the picture he took. And this is what she writes about the photo. I loved this photo. I still love this photo. It makes me look feisty, fierce, powerful, and even sexy. I'd never had anyone capture me in a photo like this before. I loved this idea of me. I got a lot of editions with this headshot, but what I didn't get was a lot of jobs. Because she said, like, there's this amazing picture, and yeah, it's a photograph of her, but it really didn't show her. It didn't show her the way that she actually was. And so it didn't land her any jobs because in the end, she shows up and there she is. You know, She's Jenna Fisher. She's not this like pouting, sexy version of herself. She's the one that got the job as Pam. And that's what she said is like, if I'd been trying to use that headshot, I wouldn't have got this role that was my big role because that's not the character that they were looking for. And that's a character that is a much better fit for me. And so I just think it's this idea, like we have to show ourselves.
Yes, we have to show up as who we are rather than who we maybe think we should be.
And sometimes and I mean, this resonated with me in my own life because just like her agent was like, okay, you need to have a better headshot. So when we were starting Happier, this podcast, a couple people said to me like, well, you really want to highlight your conflicts because people are really, really interested in conflicts and that's what's going to make people want to listen. And I kept saying to people, well, that's a problem because I literally have less conflict with Elizabeth than any other person in my life. We are like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we can't lean into that because we have differences, but we don't really have much conflict. And then with the Happiness Project, when I was writing the Happiness Project, all these people said, oh, no one wants earnest. You can't write it some earnest version of it. And I was like, but the fact is, I'm really earnest, you know?
Right.
And so I feel fortunate that I felt so incapable of doing what they suggested that I didn't take their advice. And it might have been that if I felt I could have done a better job, I might have even tried it, which wouldn't have been good. And so it's like,
No.
I needed to show myself, we needed to show ourselves.
Yeah, it makes me think, Gretchen, I was just saying this to Sarah the other day, and I've said it many times. As a showrunner, I'm always saying that next time we're on a show, I'm going to show up on set as a big personality. I'm going to make jokes and walk around and really just be big. I was saying to Sarah, I'm going to have a plan for how I can foster my big personality. So just having this conversation makes me think I'm probably going to have to abandon that idea because it's not who I am.
Well, and here's the thing, and this is what I think is what your example really makes me think of this, is on the one hand, there's the fantasy self, which is we need to let go of the fantasy self, like the one that is just like what we wish we were and which is just not realistic. That's like me having linen cocktail napkins. Who do I think I am, right? That is just not me. That's the fantasy self. But I think there is a part of you that is a performer, and there is a part of you that loves to tell jokes and like hold a conversation. And so I could see that maybe your vision of like maybe big personalities that you've seen in the past and that you admire, maybe that is not right for you, but you need to show yourself because Elizabeth, you're so funny. You're so relatable. People love you. You have this wry sense of humor. You can command attention. So maybe the thing is to say, like, maybe it's that your conception of what you're aiming for isn't quite right, and you need to find your own way to inhabit that role in the way that's right for you.
Yeah, and you know what, Gretchen? You say that and it sounds so obvious, but I've never thought about that before as I've approached this job and this idea. And I think you're right. I think I've just been trying to lean into something I'm not.
Yes.
As opposed to leaning into who I am.
Yes.
But in a role of being, as you said, more commanding.
Right.
So I'm excited for a chance to try this next time I'm on set.
Well, it's this tension between accept ourselves and expect more from ourselves. So I think we want to show ourselves, we want to be authentic, but we don't want to be complacent. We want to push ourselves, but we want to do it in the way that's right for us. And the fact is, like, there are so many ways to succeed. There's so many ways to be a great showrunner, but sometimes we get sort of a model in our head and we think, well, this is what it would look like.
Yes.
And it's also true that sometimes just being upfront with your limitations can really work for you. And I just have never forgotten. So both of our parents are from North Platte, Nebraska, so we have a lot of feelings about Nebraska, which we love.
Yes.
And I remember a couple of visits ago, Mom and Dad said to me, did you hear about this slogan, this tourist slogan that Nebraska had a while back? The slogan is, honestly, it's not for everybody. And I thought that they were pranking me. I'm like, there is no way that is the tourist slogan for a state. Honestly, it's not for everyone. And they're like, no, really, I look it up. Honestly, it's not for everyone. And so I thought, they're just show yourself.
Yeah.
You're
out there.
Put it out there, have a little sense of humor perhaps, but don't try to present yourself as something that you're not. I mean, everybody always says be authentic, and maybe this is just another way to say it, but thinking about that headshot really made that idea concrete for me in a way that this sort of a general discussion of authenticity never really rang true. For me, at least.
And Gretch, I have to point out, Missouri's slogan is the show me state. So
that's right.
It all comes together.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That took me a minute to put that together. Yes, well, let us know if you do try this at home and how showing yourself works for you and in what situations and how have you shown yourself. Let us know on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Facebook. Drop us an email at podcast@GretchenRubin.com. Or, as always, you can go to the show notes. This is happiercast.com/477 for everything related to this episode.
Coming up, we have an Altoid tin hack, but first, this break. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive.
I know that when I've been hiring, it's really hard to do. It's really hard to find quality candidates. It's really hard to handle the process. Hiring is easy when you have lots of quality candidates, like with LinkedIn Jobs. It's so easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Gretchen. That's linkedin.com/Gretchen to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, Elizabeth, time for the hack. And I have to say that you and I were astonished by the outpouring of creative and innovative ideas that people have come up with to use the Altoids tin. Clearly, we are not the only ones who are haunted by, oh my gosh, this tin is so great. What else can I do with it once I eat my Altoids? And this is one of my favorites.
Yes, Deirdre said, on the issue of Altoid tins, I am a nut freak, and I have found that the Altoid tins are a great serving size for taking nuts with you as snacks. Nut cases, if you will. Such a good idea.
Well, see, and I especially like this because Elizabeth, I always have to have snacks with me, so I always travel with snacks. I love eating nuts, and I get those little snack packs, but it's very wasteful to have all these little snack packs. It really has bothered me. But the idea of like loading up a baggie, they so often open up, and then you've got nuts and nut dust and nut salt, and it's all over everything. But, you know, an Altoid tin just feels much cleaner and crisper. And so, but the problem is I got rid of all my Altoids tins, so now I need to get another tin so I can use it for my nuts.
Yes. Such a good idea.
Great hack.
And easy.
And easy, yes. And a repurposing hack. And I think I'm going to put stickers on it. I'm always looking for a way to use my massive sticker collection. So I will put nut-related stickers on my tin.
Nice.
A little everyday creativity. So that is a very satisfying hack. But now let's talk about a happiness stumbling block. And Elizabeth, this is something that you raised on Happier in Hollywood in episode 255. And it seems like your stumbling block is something that is really resonating with a lot of people.
Yes. So the stumbling block is that I love to be social, Gretch. I get so much from seeing friends and doing things with people. And yet, whenever I make a plan, I start to dread it almost immediately. And I spend weeks dreading it. Even though I know I'll enjoy it and I'll be happy I did it, I'm filled with dread. I want to cancel. And this is a big stumbling block because I don't want to walk around feeling dread all the time, but nor do I want to stop making plans.
Okay, a couple questions. First, did you feel this way before COVID, or do you think this is like a post-COVID thing?
I was trying to remember that. I think it's mostly post-COVID. I think maybe I had a bit of it, but it feels like it really came up to the surface post-COVID.
But also one of the things post-COVID is like we're just at home more. I feel like pre-COVID, at least for you, like you were forced out and like you were sort of out and about more, just driving hither and thither. Yes. Okay, because let's get into like what is the element of your dread? Because maybe it's tied to this getting geared up to go out.
Yes. Well, there's definitely a factor of I just don't want to bother.
Right.
Feels like such an effort.
Putting on real clothes.
Yes, absolutely. Putting on clothes, my hair, makeup, organizing, just getting the oomph to go.
So it's not really the seeing the people. It's more about the logistical hassles, would you say?
Yes. It's not. Some people, I think, have social anxiety where the dread comes from seeing the people. That's the part that I like.
Okay.
What I don't like is everything leading up to it.
Okay.
I don't like the whole getting there. If I could just close my eyes and be there, I would be fine. It's the getting there.
This is a key step, I think, because we always say, identify the problem because the problem might not be what you think. So I think a lot of people might assume, like it's about like make sure you have a friend there or get there early so you can acclimate to the group. But that's not your issue. Your issue is a logistical issue. Your issue is a prep issue. Okay, so let's think, are there ways where you can make it easier? Are there the little mini stumbling blocks in the preparation to go that you could tackle?
Yes. And this is something I've been thinking about. And Sarah tapped into your brain and said, I think Gretchen would tell you to minimize the decisions you have to make so that it's easier.
Okay.
And many listeners also weighed in with that advice. And I should add that I've heard from many people who experience this exact same phenomenon, which is why we're talking about it.
Right. Yeah.
So some ideas are to have like 5 outfits that you know you'll wear. I think Something adjacent to that I'm sort of thinking about doing is just saying, okay, when I go out, I just wear all black. And then it's easy because you know what you're going to wear and you don't have to stress about, the outfit, and all black is good for almost any occasion.
Yeah. Right. Just to reduce the decision fatigue. I mean, one thing a lot of people do is they'll even take a picture of an outfit on their phone and then they just look at them and pick one. And so again, it's like pre-mixed and you just at a glance from top to bottom figured it out. So that's one of it.
Yes.
So part of it is like, what are you going to wear? And then part of it is like the physical prep, which is the shower, the hair, all that stuff.
Yes. And Sarah suggested that I just always wear like a high ponytail, like a sleek ponytail when I go out, because that is easier than sort of figuring out how to make it look when it's down.
Okay.
I don't know about that because sometimes you want your hair to be down, but maybe I'm letting perfect be the enemy of good in that sense.
Well, you could experiment. For 6 months, you could say, I'm just going to 100% commit to this and see if that affects the dread.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Now, Elizabeth, one thing I know about you, because it's true for me too, is that we do not like driving. But lucky for me, I'm in New York City. Unlucky for you, you're in the driving capital of the world. Is that an element?
Yes, definitely. Getting there and parking. Parking is what I dislike even more than driving, and knowing where to go, because I also don't have a good sense of direction.
Yeah.
And even with GPS, I do feel a lot of anxiety about where to park. Somebody suggested I take Uber and just budget that into my life as an expense. It does get very expensive, as we all know. But of course, parking is also very expensive in LA. So that does offset the cost. If you're saving $15 on parking, that you can put that toward an Uber. So that is another thing to consider, especially at night.
Yes.
Because I think like a lot of people, I just hate driving at night when I can't see what's around me.
Right. Especially a neighborhood that you're not familiar with.
Yes.
Well, so again, maybe the thing is give yourself a budget, like it's worth X amount of money, and just say, I will do at least this. And that also feels very luxurious. And so that also might minimize the dread.
Good point.
Are there any other stumbling blocks that you can think of? Once you're there, are you like, oh, I'm so glad I'm here and this is great?
Yes. Once I'm there, I'm good. It's really leading up to it. Even if I'm actually getting ready, I'm kind of okay. It's the thinking about getting ready and getting there.
Okay. Now, what about this? Is it the idea that something's on your calendar? Does that oppress you? For some people, just, especially rebels, we talk about this all the time, just the idea that something on their calendar bothers them. Do you have that, or like, no, that's not really part of it?
Well, a bit, because I just know when it comes, I'm going to have to deal with it.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you just, you just have this, like, generally, this seems like a pretty big stumbling block.
It is. Now, I do manage to overcome it and do things.
Right.
It's not like I cancel constantly.
Right.
It's more that I don't want to feel dread. I want to feel anticipation and excitement.
Of course.
Now, what's interesting is there's a few things that don't apply. So, for instance, meeting someone at Fryman to hike, I feel no dread about that. Maybe because I don't care about what I look like, and I've parked there so many times that even if it's difficult to park, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And I don't feel this if we're seeing family.
Okay.
Either. It doesn't apply when I have family to see, and I don't know why that is.
Now, is it because family, you don't feel like they care that much about how you look, and also probably. Is Adam driving?
Yes, that's true. When we see family, Adam is driving. That's probably what it is.
Right.
Yes. And I feel like, nobody's judging me.
Well, family, they've seen you so many times. It's like they're not even going to notice you make the extra effort or not. At least I've always assumed the same thing. Well, I'm very curious. I want you to experiment with these things and see if this helps.
Yeah.
I think that those examples, when you don't feel it, are very enlightening and really shine a spotlight on the fact of like why the things that you're doing might actually alleviate some of the dread, because they're relieving the decision fatigue. They're relieving kind of the prep time. They're relieving the anxiety. It's to some extent, to the degree that you want to take the Uber. We'll see.
Yes. And I mean, everybody let us know if you're experiencing this, because I've been feeling that I'm not alone, especially post-pandemic.
Yes. Well, I think part of it is in the past, you might have been out at work and then you would just stop someplace on your way home. Yeah. And then you're already out, you're already about. It feels like it's not a dedicated trip. And so you don't focus on it in the same way. I felt like things were done as part of other things rather than as their own standalone adventure. And so they just didn't get the same amount of focus. At least that's how it felt to me.
Agreed.
Okay, and now for a listener question. Of course, we want to hear what everybody has to say about Elizabeth's stumbling block, but here is another question from a listener. Oh, and Elizabeth, this is a question for you.
It comes from Amanda. She said, I'm an engineer with about 25 years of experience in my field. About 7 years ago, it dawned on me that I was often the most senior person in a room and people were looking to me for direction. I found that my words and actions had more power than they had in the past, and I had been largely unaware of that change. It took me too long to realize that I had moved from mentee to mentor. Once I realized the change, I became more thoughtful about my actions and the impact I was having. I fear I was reckless before this realization. Elizabeth is clearly in the mentor phase of her career and is well aware of it. My question is, was it obvious to her when that change came? What were the signs? I think I missed many of them and didn't realize the change until long after it happened.
I think this is a fascinating question. And I think it's interesting that she says, I fear I was reckless, because I do think there is a responsibility for being the mentor that she's trying to accept. So, Elizabeth, how did you realize that you had moved from mentee to mentor?
Well, I don't, of course, remember the exact moment, but I thought back on it, and I think there were 4 big things that sort of put me there.
Interesting.
One was, of course, people asking for advice, people starting to ask for informational interviews. By the way, Gretch, I always try to say yes to that because it is important, I think, to be a mentor. And that can be from someone you work with or from somebody from the outside who just contacts and asks for an interview.
That's probably the easiest to spot because literally somebody is saying like, hey, can I ask you questions because you know more about this? Okay.
Yes. So that's the big one.
Yeah.
Secondly, I realized that I was less upset by a situation than other people because I'd been through it before. So some big thing comes down. Oh my gosh, people start to panic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, don't worry. This is what we'll do. Or I've seen this a million times.
Right.
Yes, it's going to be a huge amount of work, but this is what we do.
Right.
And that really helps people calm down when you've been through something and they go, okay, this person's been through it. And I do think that's a sign that you have now moved into the other side.
Right, because you're able to use experience to guide yourself and others through what seems to them to be kind of an unprecedented situation. And you're like, oh no, there's precedent.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's good.
And then just knowing that I'd put in the time. For example, Sarah and I always say to new writers, when you're first in a writer's room, like 8 hours a day, it feels like another language. You don't understand what people are saying, and it's exhausting and frustrating. And eventually, though, it becomes a totally second language that you're fluent in. And when that happens, when you can just follow what everyone is saying, moving parts around on the board, then you've kind of reached the other side of being a total professional, I guess.
Elizabeth, this kind of reminds me of a proverb of the professions. I love proverbs of the professions, and this is one that comes from the world of doctors. It's see one, do one, teach one, about procedures. And so you're sort of like, you see it, and then you can do it, and then you can teach it.
Yes.
But I'm so interested, you always talk about this talk. Can you just do like a sentence or two of what it would sound like to somebody who's like, I have no idea what you all are even speaking about? Or is it just that it's going at such a rapid pace it doesn't make sense?
Well, part of it is a rapid pace. And then what it is if you have a story on a board, so this is going to happen, then this, then this, then this, and someone says, oh, but wait, what if this character kissed this other character in Act 2? Then people with a lot of experience go, oh, yes. And then that changes the Act 4 break to this. And then we bring up the Act 6 first beat to the end of the teaser, and it all makes sense. And, you just go, what?
You're like, wait.
It's a puzzle. And so it's really getting those puzzle muscles.
Yeah, because I've heard you and Sarah talk about things like that. And I'm like, you're not even finishing your sentences. Yeah. Okay, I got it. Okay. And then what's the final one that helped you realize?
And then the final one is when you're asked to be a judge.
Oh. Interesting.
There's always things to judge. And I do think when you're in the position where people look to you, that's when you now take on the mentor role. Now, I do want to finally say, Gretch, I'm still a mentee as well. that never stops.
No, I think that's a good point. Well, Elizabeth, I know that people will often say to you like, oh, well, I often think about this insightful thing that you told me about office politics, or I've never forgotten how you explained to me how to think about this thing or the other thing. And you're like, I don't remember saying that, but I'm so glad.
Yes. And you know what I've realized over time, Gretchen? I think my strength as a mentor is more about how to handle the job emotionally and psychologically than it is about me actually teaching people how to put a sentence together. I think that my strength is communicating in that arena.
Well, again, that's show yourself. It's like, as a mentor, it's like, okay, what kind of mentor am I? There are many things that I could teach you. There are many things that I'm skillful at, but this is really the thing that if I want to show you my superpower, or the thing that I perhaps bring more insight into it than other people might be able to communicate. Oh, well, that's great. Well, I hope that that's a useful answer. It's certainly a very thought-provoking question from Amanda.
Yes. All right, coming up, we are going to talk about demerits and gold stars related to April 10th being the 100th day of the year. But first, this break. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It can be easy to ignore our social battery and spread ourselves thin, especially with social gatherings picking up after the winter. Gretchen, I love to socialize, but I need to do it in a way that's good for me, that doesn't drain my battery. And therapy can really help figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, so that you're not just spending out too much of your social energy.
If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with the licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find your social sweet spot with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Gretchen Rubin today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Gretchen Rubin. Imagine upgrading your wardrobe with luxury essentials at unbeatable prices. Quince is here to transform the way you shop with a range of high-quality items priced within reach, like 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters for $50, organic cotton sweaters, washable silk tops, and timeless 14-karat gold jewelry. Elizabeth, right this second, I am wearing my sweater from Quince. It's the Mongolian cashmere crewneck sweater in Everglade green. It feels so great, and it came in so many gorgeous colors. I love this green.
Yeah, Gretchen, I got the same sweater in white, and I absolutely love it. The best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Indulge in affordable luxury. Go to quince.com/Gretchen for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/Gretchen to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Gretchen.
Cruise in style in a Toyota Camry. With available all-wheel drive and multiple driving modes, you can accomplish anything. Experience cutting-edge available tech like a multimedia touchscreen and wireless connectivity, complemented by the reliability of Toyota's Safety Sense. It's no wonder the Camry has been the best-selling car in America for over 2 decades.
Or check out a new Corolla and define your style with a model for everyone, from the sleek and affordable sedan to the super efficient hybrid and the hip and agile hatchback. There's a Corolla made just for you. Toyota has even introduced their spacious Corolla Cross as a hybrid for when your adventure calls for both maximum capacity and efficiency.
And right now, your local Toyota dealer has vehicles in stock and is making delivery on new vehicles almost every day.
So don't wait. Buy a new Camry, Corolla, or Corolla Cross today. Visit buyatoyota.com for deals, details, and more. Toyota, let's go places.
Okay, it's time for Demerits and Gold Stars. And yes, I don't know about you, Elizabeth, but when Eliza and Eleanor were in kindergarten, they made a huge deal out of the 100th day of school because it was helping them to count to 100. And there is something kind of magical about the number 100. And April 10th is the 100th day of 2024. And so in honor of the 100th day, we took a look at our 24 for 24 list. And I have a demerit,
Yeah.
which is I was doing my days of policy, and I haven't started doing my days of policy yet. So time is ticking by. This is a good reminder. I need to look for those policy opportunities to have my days of policy.
Okay.
But I still have plenty of time.
Yes, you do. It's only the 100th day.
And how about you?
So my gold star, Gretchen, is to myself
Good.
because on my 24 for 24 list was take Nacho and Daisy on a weekend away because we had done that before and I got so much out of it. I'm not a person who in a million years I ever thought would be taking my dogs
I never thought that of you either.
And here I am, and I'm happy to report that we've already twice taken Daisy and Nacho on weekends away. And it is ridiculous how much satisfaction I get from seeing them like sniff around in a new place. But it just fills me with joy. So maybe they'll even get to go away again.
It sounds like it.
Very possible.
There we go. Okay, the resource for this week also inspired by the 100th day. That is just one date that is highlighted in the calendar of Catalyst. And if you want the full calendar of Catalyst, if this is the kind of thing that you enjoy to use as a prompt for reflection or action, a reminder to plan for the changes that you want to see in the rest of the year, you can get that for free at happiercast.com/resources. That is the calendar of Catalyst. Elizabeth, what are we reading? What are you reading?
I am reading Sociopath by Patrick Gagney.
And I am reading Leaving by Roxana Robinson. And that's it for this episode of Happier. Remember, try this at home. Show yourself. Let us know if you tried it and if it worked for you.
Thank you to our executive producer, Chuck Reed, and everyone at Odyssey. Get in touch. Gretchen's on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and TikTok at Gretchen Rubin, and I'm on Instagram and Threads at Liz Craft. Our email address is podcast@GretchenRubin.com.
And if you like this show, please email an episode to a friend. Tell them about it. Rate us, review us, follow us. All these things really help our show.
Until next week, I'm Elizabeth Craft.
And I'm Gretchen Rubin. Thanks for joining us. Onward and upward. So, Elizabeth, it sounds like Nacho and Daisy are really, really good travelers.
They are. They bark very little in the hotel room, which is basically the thing I worry about.
Which is funny because they bark at home a lot.
I know.
It's just the opposite of what you would think. Why do you think that?
I know. I think it's because they're so stimulated by being in a new place that they're focused on that rather than on barking. But we'll see. I don't know if we went somewhere and stayed at a house for a week or something if they would start barking. But so far, so good.
So far, so good. From the Onward Project.
I don't know about you, but I'm always looking for ways for my son to get involved and give back in our local community. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Student Visionaries of the Year, a campaign by Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, the largest nonprofit organization dedicated to creating a world without blood cancers.
Student Visionaries of the Year is a 7-week philanthropic leadership development program for high school students. Participants form strong teams and fundraise in honor of a pediatric blood cancer survivor in their local community. This program is transformative. It not only helps students develop valuable life skills like project management, communication, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship, not to mention it looks great on college applications, but most importantly, is also a chance for them to engage in meaningful work within their community and make a real impact on blood cancer patients and their families. You can learn more about Student Visionaries of the Year or even nominate a student at lls.org/students. That's lls.org/students.